Hey, what's up, everyone? It is Lisbeth Graham from Anchored by Christ, and today I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my story with my son being in NICU and just how amazing God built that testimony for His glory, all of it. But before I tell you guys that story, don't forget to subscribe if you want to get dinged and see the videos. And I hope you find them interesting. And I hope that you find this how would I say, this into my life kind of thing. This video into just a little bit of my past and stuff into my life. So yeah, I'm excited. So I'm going to start off by saying that we knew we were going to have a son and a daughter, and we knew the exact order that our kids would arrive, with Rylan being the first one, and then our son being the second one. And the reason why is, so my husband and I started dating October 2010, and the beginning of 2011 we would go would always go to like Disneyland and things because we had like an annual membership. And so I remember falling asleep on one of our drives, and I had this like dream, you would say. I had this dream that I had a little girl in front of me, and she was dancing in a living room, and she had like curly hair, and she was wearing like a blue polka dot dress. And as she was dancing, it was like in slow motion, like something you would see in the movies. And she was dancing and twirling. And then I had this baby right here that I was literally on the right shoulder carrying and bouncing. This is like, and I'm doing the rhythm, like that's how it was, because it was in slow motion. And I remember knowing it was a boy. It was wearing a white onesie, and that's like so neutral. So I did gender neutral. So I had no idea if it would be a boy or a girl. And so I just like knew. So through like seeing it in my mind, you wouldn't know it was a boy, but I kind of knew it was a boy. And so I remember telling my husband, who was my boyfriend then, like, oh, I had this dream. And he had a dream that I was pregnant with, no, scratch that. We were in the labor delivery suite with me, like I had just delivered a baby, and he was holding the baby, and it was a pink blanket. So he had a dream he was going to have a daughter first, and we had the name picked out, Rylan. And so we kind of already knew that that was a promise from God, that we would have a girl and then a boy. And the reason why I tell you guys is to kind of segue into this story, because when you get news that your kid might not breathe or something might happen to your kid, you kind of go into like scared mode and fear. And that is completely okay. And completely, that's fine. We don't know, like I said in the last video, is we don't know what God's doing. We don't know the bigger picture, but we can see what's in front of us and move forward with that. And so it was April 2nd, look at me. It's April now. It was July 2nd when I woke up at like 6 in the morning. I think I looked at my clock and it was like 6:16 a.m. or something. And I turned and I felt like I had peed on myself. I'm going to keep it 100 because, like I said in my last video, I am very real. So here we go. I felt like I peed on myself, so I ran to the bathroom. And I was like, man, like, wow, this kid is squishing my bladder. Like, I was like, he's legit squishing my bladder because I'm peeing on myself. So I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, probably just peed on myself. Being a mom, we laugh and we cough and we kind of like tingle, right? And so I remember I just got up, got dressed, and Rylan then woke up, and I was in the kitchen making breakfast, and I started peeing again. I was like, man, like I just legit can't stop. And it was a Tuesday that I would usually take Rylan to the USO here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I would take her to the USO, and she would do story time and then have like food and stuff. And so I called my neighbor, and I was like, hey, something weird is going on, so I don't know. But Rylan and I are still going, so I'm not sure if you're going to go. She said, oh yeah, me and Tyler, her husband, we're going to go. And so I was like, cool. So I went outside to move, because we were watering our grass a lot. And so I went outside to move the hose so it can water and stuff like that. And I peed again, and I was like, okay, something's not right at this point. So it was like roughly 9 a.m. No, it was a little bit before 9 a.m. So then I called my neighbor, and I was like, hey, I'm going to call the hospital and see if everything's okay, because I peed again. And I was like, I was wondering if you can take Rylan with you. Mind you, okay, my husband and I are very protective of our kids, and we didn't really know our neighbor. And so thank God, she's a phenomenal person. We got super blessed with her. And so we were just like, can you watch our kid? And nobody had watched our kid before. So that's a whole nother story about our house, which is another story I can share with you guys about how we ended up where we're at now. And so it's crazy, because then I called my husband. I was like, hey, he was at work, and he was already done with his training, with his like Marine training. He's a Marine corpsman, which means he's in the Navy, and he's like the Navy dock corpsman, whatever you want to say, the Marine dock, whatever. The point that I'm trying to say is, so I called him, and he's like at work. He had just been in this job for like less than a month, because he graduated June 19th from his schooling, and he had only been there like maybe 2 weeks. And so I called him, and I was like, hey, I think I need to go to the hospital again. I had been there prior, like a week before, with pain in my stomach area. And so I was having kind of somewhat complications, but not really with this pregnancy. It was mostly uncomfortable and having pain. And so he's like, do you want me to drive you? And I was like, you know what? I'd feel better if you went with me than me just going by myself. And he's like, all right. So he drove here, came back. We got in my car, and we drove to the hospital. I had called them and asked them, you know, should I come in? They put me on hold, and they were like, you know what? Just come in just to make sure everything's okay. We got there, went to the triage, and they checked me in, and I went to their room, got undressed, whatever. And the doctor, like, after they wanted to make sure it wasn't amniotic fluid, that my water didn't break. So they had did a swab. It was like I'm telling you, the last time I ate was like at 7 a.m. and it wasn't that much because I was nervous something could be wrong. So I was starving, and they didn't have anything, you know. She's like, I don't have anything, just juice. So they gave me juice. And so I remember they gave me juice, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, man, I'm hungry. And then it was like 12 when they came in, and the doctor came in, and she's like, hey, so you're not going home. She's like, we are actually going to admit you because your water broke. And I'm thinking, no, like, I'm only 31 weeks, and I think Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 31 plus 3. So I was like, no. I was like, there's no way. I still have like 9 weeks to go is what I said. I was like, this baby's not ready to come out. And I'm like, really? You know? And then my husband's like right here to my right, and he's like, puts his hands over like my legs, and he goes, and I completely lost it at that point. I started crying. I called my mom, and I was like, the baby's coming. Like, she's like, how? Like, you're only 31 weeks. He wasn't supposed to arrive till like mid-August. You know, what happened? And I like tried to explain to her, but I was a mess. And so I texted my cousin, and then I text like my family, like he called his parents. And as they were like admitting me, I just got afraid. I felt afraid. And I remember calling my mom, and she's like, it's my mom, you know. So she was like crying on the phone, and she's like, I want to be there. I want to help you. And I was like, I know. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, I'm going to be fine. Mind you, the only people I knew at this point was my realtor and my neighbor. That's all the family I had. True story. So my realtor and my neighbor were my only family I really had. And so I text her, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'll bring Rylan to the hospital and stuff. And my cousin called me, and I think when my cousin finally called me, because my cousin and I grew up, so she's like my sister. I think when she called me, I lost it. Like, I remember weeping with her, like weeping, like I was just like crying, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? Like, why is this happening? And let me tell you guys, 2 weeks prior to that, this is what's crazy, is 2 weeks prior to that, I remember staring out of my like glass sliding door and saying, God, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I just feel like I need some kind of revival in my life, something to reignite my faith. And I was like, don't touch my kids. You can handle me and handle my husband, but just don't touch my kids. And that's what happened. I'm crying on the phone with my cousin. My mom texts me and calls me and says, you know, her sister from her church has some words. And it was like, I still have the voicemail from her. That's how powerful it was. That night, because I delivered July 5th, so it was 3 nights in the hospital. That night, I was listening to a lot of worship. I didn't know what was happening. I had talked to so many different doctors, the respiratory therapist, the anesthesiologist, the PA, then the NICU doctor, then the regular doctor. I talked to so many people. And the only person who in this hospital sat down and gave me so much comfort was the anesthesiologist, the CRNA, as you could say. He sat with me and I'm like crying with him and telling him like how scared I am. He's like, it's going to be fine. Like reassuring me. He took the time to like chit chat with me. And then, that night I had Micah's like heart had dipped like maybe 4 times. They wanted it at like 120 plus and it kept dipping to 6. So mind you, I didn't sleep that night. I haven't slept since the boy went in my belly. So, legit, I haven't slept since he's been in my belly. And so, he literally he was, dipping. And my cousin called me because it was like 1 a.m. So it was like 10 o'clock their time. Back in California, and she's like, are you okay? What's going on? And I was like, his heart just keeps dipping. I don't know. Like, and I'm scared. You know, I'm scared. The next day, which was the 3rd, they tell me I have 2 options. Micah and I could be transferred to another hospital that's an hour and a half away together, or I stay here and deliver and he gets transferred to this other hospital and then I'll have to meet him there. And I was like, no, just transfer me. I want to be with him the whole way. Like, I want us to be together the whole time. And so the 3rd, I finally got to talk to like a legit doctor, and he's like, make sure that they, you know, don't check you again, because we checked you and we know you're still at 3 centimeters. So make sure they don't check you because we don't want too much infection with all these hands getting in you, right? And I was like, okay. And he was amazing. I just remember like Dr. F or something like that. It started with an F and he was pretty cool. And my daughter and my husband came in and I had to explain to them like, hey, because he was at home with her. And I was like, hey, they have to transfer me and have to go, and you and Rylan will have to meet me there. One of the ugliest, not ugliest, one of the most, to me, traumatic looks. Excuse me. One of the most traumatic looks is when your baby, Rylan, ran up to me as I'm in the stretcher and she's like, I'm so scared for you. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to go. I don't want you to, like, she legit was crying. And I'm on the stretcher, you know, because they got to strap me in and stuff. And she's scared. She is so scared because she's never seen me in a stretcher. I've never really been in a stretcher and in an ambulance. So I'm sitting there and I'm crying with her because I'm scared. And then my baby, you know, she's scared for me. She doesn't want to leave me. And oh my God. Because you know how you have to face the back of the ambulance? She's just standing there and crying as I'm leaving. And it was very traumatic, this whole experience. And I told her it's going to be okay. You know, I'm crying and telling her, it's okay, mommy's okay. I promise. But mommy inside was dying a little, but she's seeing me like that. And I just seen her carrying like like her jacket and stuff, and her dad and my husband are going to meet me there. And it made me like, I wish I could say I'd be okay to have another kid, but the truth is, this very much traumatized me, the whole experience. And so the doctor there, before they sent me off, told me, the lungs might not be fully developed and your son might not be able to breathe. So we have to make sure we have respiratory there because he's probably not going to breathe. Mind you, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear them saying that my baby was not going to breathe. Who wants to hear that? In the state of mind. And I get it. They have to tell you every possibility of everything. But I didn't want to hear that, So I called my mom before they had transferred me and I was like, hey, they said this. And she's like, you need to pray against that right now. And we're going to pray against it. And we're going to believe and stand firm that this boy is going to be healthy. He is, going to be strong. He's going to, and I'm like crying and praying, lots of tears happened. And so I got to New Hanover Hospital in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I got there and I remember like I was on bed rest at like Camp Lejeune's hospital. But there, when I got there, I was like, can I even get up and walk? And they're like, oh yeah, we want you to, get up. Because as much as we want to keep this baby in, we've given you the 2 shots to develop his lungs. We kind of, like, they wanted me to have him naturally. They didn't want me to just sit around and just wait for the C-section. They're like, we'll walk around. So I walked around. Josh and Marlene came, and they had gone home the 3rd. They had gone home. And I told them, don't worry about, no. They spent the night the 3rd they had spent the night there. They spent the night on the 3rd of July in like a couch bed. It was horrible. My husband said he didn't sleep. And I was like, hey, it is what it is. And so the next day was the 4th of July and, nothing was progressing. I was walking, we were hanging out, and then I was like, hey, just go home, everything will be fine. And my doula kept checking in. She's like, hey, how's it going? Side note, if you don't have a doula, I recommend you have one. Second, birth without medication and natural. I believe my doula helped me tremendously. So if you're in the Jacksonville area, Wilmington and stuff, I have a good doula to throw your way because you need to have a doula. Like, I believe she made this beautiful. She was heaven sent. The Lord sent her to us. And so, so the next morning, which was the 5th, I woke up at like 7 a.m. and I remember watching like The Office. So with my daughter, I watched I Love Lucy during my whole being in labor. And then with Micah, I watched The Office. So they each have like a theme with them. Humor or comedy is something that I'm all about. So I remember watching it and I was like, ooh, I felt contractions. I know what contractions were, so I started feeling them, but they were so far apart. And I was like, okay, whatever. It started the night before. I'm sorry, they started the night before, but they were like 30 minutes to an hour apart. So it's not really, I wasn't in any kind of active labor, but I was feeling them. So I didn't sleep much because I was feeling them. And so the next day I placed the order for my breakfast, had a really bomb breakfast. At the hospital, I had really good food and I had really good breakfast. And around 9, it started to they started coming every 15 minutes. So I texted my doula and I was like, hey, I think you should, she texted me. And she's like, how's it going? And I was like, I think you should come now. Or did I call her? No, I did call her. And I think she was asleep. And I called her and I was like, hey, I'm sorry to wake you up, but I think, sorry, that was my dog. I was like, I think I'm starting to have contractions very close together. And she's like, all right, I'll leave here soon. Then I called my husband. I woke him up because I think it was 7:30 or something, or 8. And I was like, hey, I think you need to come down here. I'm having contractions. And he's like, all right, got Rylan dressed, whatever. Both of them. So my doula arrived, I want to say around 10:30. And then I started feeling, she was like, ooh, she's like, I think, she's like, do you, she was like, do you want to get checked? like to see if you've progressed. Because I was only at 60% effaced, like the day before or something, or 80%. I can't remember exactly. And I was like, you know what? I have a feeling I should be checked. And so the nurse came in with the doctor and they're like, are you sure? Because we don't want to keep checking you if nothing's happening. And I was like, no, I think you guys should check me. They checked me and they were like, okay, you're at 100%. We need to move you to labor and delivery. That's when they started kicking in. The contractions started kicking in. Boom, boom. Like they were getting very close. Like they were about 7 minutes apart. And then they brought they came and they were like, do you want the wheelchair or do you want to walk? I looked at my doula and she's like, you need to walk to get this baby out. And I was like, oh, I hate everything about you right now. So we walked and I felt like an eternity walking to actually labor and delivery. And I'm walking, contractions are coming. So it started at 11 and it hit full blown progression, like full blown, like, woo. My daughter was in the room, and so she was like in there with my husband and our doula, and she was like helping our doula like with me. You know, she was coaching me, which is amazing to watch my. She was 3 then. My 3-year-old coached me, and she's like, "Come on, Mom, breathe through it, and it was just the cutest thing in the world. And so finally, like I think my doula's like, let's go try a shower, because you know she had me go to the bathroom twice to go pee because it really helps. So if you're trying to do it natural, like I'm telling you, get a doula, but going pee and sitting in that position to go pee brings that baby down. No joke. And so she turned on the shower and I'm sitting on the ball, you know, with my hands over the bed, and I'm like swaying and stuff. And I'm like, oh, as she's turning on the water and it's on, I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I feel like something's down there. Literally my words. I was like, oh, I think like, because I felt him fully get in there. And the nurse came in and I'm like, I think it's time. And they measured me and they're like, okay, she's at 10. I felt like 100 people walked into the room. They had me sit up and they wanted me to be on my back, whatever, but I don't believe in laboring that way. And so I was like, no, I'm going to get to my side and I'll hold my legs. The doctor, hilariously, a man, okay, and the reason why I say a man is because he has no idea what labor is like. He's like, whoa, don't start pushing, wait for my team. And I was like, I ain't waiting for nobody. This baby's coming out. Literally, I was like, it's coming out. And he's like gloving up real fast. And he had, I think his intern was there and she was the one. And I didn't know what she was doing because I'm telling you, I'm afraid of episiotomies because I've heard so many horrific stories. She was down there, like I could just feel her touching that area. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just trying to make sure you don't rip. And I was like, okay. I was like, I thought you were giving me a episiotomy. I said it so fast. She's like, no. I'm trying to prevent a tear, you know? And so I tell you this, Micah came and he was screaming and crying. There's a picture. I'm going to post it right here. Like, okay, she's at 10. I felt like 100 people walked into the room. They had me sit up and they wanted me to be on my back, whatever, but I don't believe in laboring that way. And so I was like, no, I'm going to get to my side and I'll hold my legs. The doctor, hilariously, a man, okay, and the reason why I say a man is because he has no idea what labor is like. He's like, whoa, don't start pushing, wait for my team. And I was like, I ain't waiting for nobody. This baby's coming out. Literally, I was like, it's coming out. And he's like gloving up real fast. And he had, I think his intern was there and she was the one. And I didn't know what she was doing because I'm telling you, I'm afraid of episiotomies because I've heard so many horrific stories. She was down there, like I could just feel her touching that area. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just trying to make sure you don't rip. And I was like, okay. I was like, I thought you were giving me a episiotomy. I said it so fast. She's like, no. I'm trying to prevent a tear, you know? And so I tell you this, Micah came and he was screaming and crying. There's a picture. I'm going to post it right here so you can see that is literally my mentality. Like that is literally the emotion I had. That little boy came in this world and all I kept saying is, thank you, Jesus. And I was saying it loud and crying. And I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Like saying it loud, you know, so everyone could hear. He was crying. Then they took him and stuff. And let me tell you something. He literally, like, that whole thing was God stretching my faith. I have never been so close since my divorce and my separation back in 2009 to the Lord than that time. And then my mom, her friend, her sister in Christ, tells me she has a vision or a dream. And I can tell you, I believe it. No matter what you think, I believe it, because I do believe God, sends messages to you and to people and they align. And I believe that God, he reaffirmed that I had beat this battle. So my mom calls me and tells me that in this vision, there was like a train station, right? And there was like a train coming in. In this train station, my mom's sister in Christ was standing, seeing the train come by slowly, like it was a very slow motion. And you know how on trains, there's like sometimes an open area where like the helper, the conductor, or whatever will stand there. I don't know if that's like 1940 stuff or old school stuff, but that's what it was in the stream. The guy was standing. I'm sorry. So the train came, and I was standing where the conductor was, and she was standing watching me, and I went kind of like this, salute. And in front of the train was an angel, like guiding the train. And then I was on the outside saluting her. And through that salute, it was like the battle. I had overcame this battle with Christ, with my faith, and my faith was going to get stronger. And the angel, was God guided me through it. Crazy, right? Crazy. And so I'm a huge believer that what we face in this world is a test to bring God glory. If we are Romans 8:28, if we all know that God works all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. If you are called for his purpose, what you face is legit to give glory to God. It is mind-blowing, because one or two things will happen to you when you face something this traumatic and tragic. You will, one, run from it and blame God and say it's his fault, screw him. Or two, you will be like, you know what? You put this here, Lord, for me to accomplish and conquer this battle. And with you, I am going to conquer it, because you gave me the strength to accomplish it. You get to make that choice. You get to make that choice if you legit want to win with Christ, or you're going to be against him. That's just it. And what we're facing now in the world, is insane. It's a time for us to get closer to God, man. Like, on the real. And I'll talk about that next week, about, in times like these, when everything is just unknown, the uncertainty is what's gonna help us. The uncertainty is where we trust God the most. And so I know this testimony ran a little longer than I expected than the last one. And then if you stuck around through the whole one, God bless you. Thank you. But how can I pray for you? Comment below and tell me, how can I pray for you? If you want anonymous, you can reach out to me on Facebook, send me a message, and I'll pray for you. We all have an amazing story. God uses it. And so just know, your story will change, can change one person's life if you share it. Love you guys. God bless you. And again, don't forget to subscribe so you can see the videos. All right. Bye.